Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, in the last 24 hours, I've been approached by a number of people who knew that I was an Air Force pilot many years ago and flew a particular airplane that apparently has crashed over in Iraq. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I know. These were two KC-135s. These are the air refueling vehicles of the United States Air Force, and they're the main ones who are charged with refueling pretty much everything, whether it's fighters, whether it's bombers, or even things like the C-5A. They refuel everything because most airplanes can't complete their mission unless they've got tankers to gas them up. The way things work is when you're a tanker, you go to a spot, a place in the sky, sort of like a gas station on a corner. And all the folks in the neighborhood know where the gas station is, and they can stop in there to get topped off for fuel. It's a refueling spot. They all exist, but they're in the sky. Turns out that could have that same refueling place could be stacked up with more than one tanker. So you could have one at one level, one at another level, one at another level. You could have multiple tankers stacked up, flying in the same particular pattern, refueling all sorts of different aircraft. And that's what happens when you get a lot of airplanes flying during the war. You got to have certain refueling positions, and then you stack the tankers up to serve the various aircraft. That's what may have been going on in this situation, when unfortunately it appears that someone may have misread their altimeter. Now, one of the two airplanes involved with this situation survived. And the pictures you can see, if you take a look at the upper portion of the rudder, you can see that sheared off. And that means something hit them from above. And when it did, that caused the other aircraft to be also damaged. I don't know the degree, but if the damage was bad enough, the aircraft could lose control and ultimately crash. The reports are there were 5 souls on board of that particular KC-135, and all the rescue recovery has not yet been completed. But there is a crew now that is able to tell us here's exactly what happened from their perspective, and we'll find that out over time. Right now, we don't know all the answers yet. But flying, folks, is an inherently dangerous business on occasion, because you're all trying to be in one particular place, trying to do one particular job. And if one person makes a mistake and misreads an altimeter, things like this can happen. A lot of those people over there flying the KC-135s are reserve officers and National Guard officers. Many of them are airline pilots who've been called up for a tour of duty, if you will. They don't necessarily fly the airplane all the time, but they're very good pilots. But this is unfortunate. But can it happen? In a wartime, anything can happen. And in this case, something did happen. Like I said, we have one surviving crew who will at least be able to tell us in a briefing what occurred to them. Maybe they didn't see everything because obviously their view of what's going on above them, if that's where things happen, is somewhat limited. But if this was done at night, this was done in bad weather, I don't know all the particulars. Hopefully we'll learn down the road. But the sad thing is, we've lost 5 qualified individuals serving the United States military and the U.S. Air Force. Losing a KC-135 is bad, but losing 5 people is even worse. You can replace airplanes, folks, but you can't replace people. Something to think about. And now you know. Well, if you happen to watch any TV news this week, the chances are good that you saw a scene that happened in the Senate Armed Services Committee where they were holding a hearing about policy, and a gentleman in a Marine sergeant uniform, had a giant outburst. And I mean a big outburst. It was so big that the police came, the Capitol Police, if you will, to remove him from the room, because the rules say that if you have an outburst, you get out of control at a hearing inside the Capitol, you'll be escorted out of the room. Well, this gentleman's name was Brian McGinnis. I don't know if he's a former Marine or not. That's not important. But if he was a former Marine, he did something that violated every single rule, regulation, and requirement in the United States military. And it's this: you never, ever appear in any way, shape, or form at a political situation, a political rally. You never do it. Not in any way, shape, or form. Now, you're going to say, wait a minute, you see military men all the time. around political situations. Yep, they're acting in their responsibilities and their duties. Because the military does, in fact, report to the president, and obviously that's a political situation. But what Mr. McGinnis did was not freedom of speech at that point. Mr. McGinnis is a Green Party candidate, and he has every right to run in any party he chooses to. Green Party candidate for the position of Senate in the United States in the state of North Carolina. And he was out there trying to say, hey, America does not want to get involved fighting for Israel. Now, that may be his opinion, and everybody's entitled to an opinion. But you cannot, you shall not, and you will not ever appear in a uniform. Now, you'll notice the Washington police, the Capitol Police as they call them, were having a great deal of difficulty getting Mr. McGinnis out of the room because he was determined not to leave. He was told to leave. He was said, get out. Police officers came up and said, Mr. Get out, you're leaving. He wouldn't do it. And they grabbed a hold of him and attempted to get him out, and he was not going to go out. He grabbed onto a door, put his arm behind it, and they were all pulling. And obviously you could see he was overpowering these two officers in any way, shape, or form. He's a big man. And then Senator Shee got up and said, I'm going to help you all. I'm going to help the police, which is exactly what he did. Well, he is now being vilified, saying, how dare he do that, break the arm of a Marine. I'm sorry, that person was not, in my opinion, a Marine. That person was attempting to wear a Marine's uniform. And if he was a Marine, he knows good and well you do not ever show up at a political rally and get yourself involved in a political situation. It's not allowed, it's forbidden, and everybody in the military knows it. You are told from the get-go, you do not wear your uniform in any particular military situation. You're voicing your opinion, which is exactly what he was doing. So, am I going to be forgiving of this gentleman? No, I'm not. My opinion, he got what he deserved. He hooked his arm around that door. They were trying to get him out, and he was not going to go out. You do that at that point, you're taking your chances, you're paying your money. It's F-A-F-O. That's it, folks. He got what he deserved, whether you like it or not. And the fact that he appeared in a Marine uniform is the most disgusting, vile, and ugly thing you could possibly imagine. Because in the military, you know you do not in any way, shape, or form appear in a political situation. That is against the rules, regulations, and Mr. Green obviously doesn't understand, or else he missed that class. Because he's got himself into trouble, he's been arrested, and I'm not about to sit there and say, well, let's help this poor man out. Didn't happen. This guy made a conscious decision to show up in a military uniform to complain about what the military is doing. In the Senate Armed Services Committee, the home of the military, you don't do that. He did. He paid the price. And now, hopefully, he will also see the inside of a jail cell. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But I'm sure a lot of other military men feel the same way as I do. And now, you know. Well, there's an old saying out there that says, beware of the Ides of March. Now, what are the Ides of March? Well, it's March 15th. That's the day that Julius Caesar was assassinated in Rome, clear back in 44 BC. It's carried on all these centuries, I guess. But is the Ides of March, March 15th, really the right day this year? No, it's not. The Ides of March this year is March the 10th, because that is the day that the head of the WNBA says to the head of the WNBA Players Association, guess what, ladies? Either sign or suffer the consequences. Now, you could call that FAFO if you want. That's perfectly fine. But what could happen? Well, what could happen is this. The Players Association could say, we're striking for what we believe. We want revenue. We want from the gross revenue. And, of course, the NBA owners are saying, oh, that ain't going to happen. We ain't going to give you that. We'll give you from the net revenue. And that's off the table. We're not going to do that. So what are the NBA owners going to do? Well, they can tell their commissioner, tell the ladies to pack sand. We're going to lock them out. Now, if they lock the ladies out, I'm not saying this could or will happen, but if they lock them out, well, then pretty soon the NBA is saying, unless you do X, Y, and Z, we're not going to let you back in. That's going to be what could happen. They can start taking away things they've already put in the potential contract, this CBA, collective bargaining agreement. Now, if the ladies decide to strike, they have every right to do that if they choose to. But then nobody's making any money, except the contract players, I suppose. But here's the big thing. If they do strike, they lose their health benefits, because currently those health benefits are run through the NBA. They still have them, but if they go on strike, everything dies. Their health benefits go away. Now, there's 144 players in the women's union, 144 players. Some big stars, we know that. Some old stars that are, looking to grab as much money as they can before they retire, because they know they ain't going to last on another CBA. They want to get their money now and get out. And then you've got the rest of the players, the bench warmers, the defensive players, the specialists. They're not making any money at all. They got car payments, mortgage payments, got to feed the kids, you name it. So the fracture is there in the WNBA Players Association. But what are they going to do when the Ides of March 10th come around? It's going to happen soon, like tomorrow. Who knows? But wash your mouth out with this. The ladies are going to be playing basketball starting on Wednesday. I'm just talking about the Team USA. You've heard a lot about them. They've got a 5-game exhibition plan going on. It's going to start on Wednesday. It's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, then Saturday, Sunday, and then the following Tuesday. It's all exhibition stuff. And it's really, they can lose every single game. They'll still be seeded in the playoffs in the World Cup because they're already seeded, so it's not really a big deal. But it's going to be interesting to watch. But here's the other deal. This is important. They gave out the jerseys to what the ladies are going to be wearing, and I thought I would pass this along to you because it's kind of interesting. You see, there's a museum that holds the jerseys of all the past famous players that played in the World Cup. And these are the top of the league, the biggest names, the Kobe Bryant's kind of stuff, all the big names who played in these World Cup things. For the ladies, one of the biggest names is Diana Taurasi. Now, she's still playing, but she is considered one of the queens of the WNBA. Guess who got her number? Person who got her number was Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark will be wearing the famed number 12, not 22, because the numbers in the World Cup don't go that high. They got lower numbers. She gets number 12. Diana Taurasi, her idol when she was a kid growing up. So Caitlin Clark's going to be wearing number 12. Playing starts on Wednesday. True TV has all the games until next Tuesday, and then TNT gets their final game against Spain. How's it going to turn out? We don't know. But at least we're going to have basketball. And yes, I know the NCAA is getting ready, but who's has much to say about that? Because who's really a big team, I don't know, and I'm not following it. But the ladies, fine. But the strike, or the lockout, well, that could be happening as early as the 10th, which is tomorrow. Will it be a lockout, or will it be a strike, or will it be much ado about nothing? I don't know. But right now, you know what I know. So if you're looking for something to watch, hey, ladies are starting to play basketball on Wednesday. And it's going to be a fun week to watch. And after all, if you're off for springtime break, what else you got going on? Sit down there, pop a beer, and enjoy watching basketball. It might be actually fun. And that's what I know. And now, that's what you know. See the gentleman in this picture? His name is Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a financial guru. He's helped a lot of people get out of financial difficulties. You may hear him on radio. You've probably seen him on TV giving people advice. And his advice, if you take it, can help you out a whole lot. Now, I'm saying all of this because recently Dave Ramsey was talking about potentially for this country, or many other countries, frankly, or the entire world, going to a cashless society. I'm going to repeat that again. The entire country, maybe even the world, going to a cashless society. The reason I bring this up is because I had a real unfortunate situation happen to me. My ATM card has been hacked. Well, that's a bad thing, and everybody knows it. So once I found out, and my bank let me know that something that wasn't right, that a transaction was made that it didn't make any sense to them because they monitor what I do. They said, "Hey, did you make that transaction?" I said, "No, I didn't." Then realized someone had hacked into my card. Well, they canceled the card, which is what they're supposed to do, and they said, "We'll have you a new card in 7 to 10 business days." Now, you heard me right. 7 to 10 business days, a new debit card replacing the one that was no longer functional. You know what that meant? For 7 to 10 days, I couldn't get access to anything. See, my bank happens to be in one location down in Texas. I'm one of those people, military people, and well, that's what we work with. But we can use any ATM anywhere, any ATM anywhere in the United States. That's the way the system works with my particular bank. That's all well and good, provided you have an ATM card. I didn't. I realized for the next week, maybe 10 days, I didn't have any access to any of my money. Well, think about it this way. What if we went to a cashless society? Everything that you did, every dime that you have, got to put it on a card. It goes into a bank. And that card can be monitored by the bank. And at any time, whether the bank or even the government could say, "We don't like what you're doing," and they can stop your transaction. You'd have to pay for everything with your card because now you go to a grocery store, see people checking out. Everybody seems to use a credit card or card of some type. Very few people pay in cash. I don't think I've ever seen anybody write a check anymore. Ask yourself this question. When was the last time you ever wrote a check? I know places that you had to write a check up until just recently because, well, they hadn't switched into modern society and banking. Now those places, well, now they're taking credit cards. It's done online. Everything is done online, folks. Think about it this way. You get a bill for something. Say you get a bill for your power company every month. They're saying, "Hey, why don't you go paperless?" Some companies are saying, "If you don't go paperless, we're going to charge you a fee of $3 a month just so you can get your bill to see it in your hand." You want it done electronically. That means you have to have an internet, right? That means you have to pay for that. And God help you if the internet system ever goes down. You know, if this country was ever attacked by somebody, they could launch a nuclear bomb in the air and create what's called EMPs. It's electronic pulses. Those pulses from a weapon of that sort will fry every piece of electronic circuitry from your watch all the way up to computer banks. Gone. It electronically fries them. If you're a cashless society and the only thing you depend upon what's in the bank electronically, you're out of luck. You got nothing. So in a cashless society, folks, anything you do, well, it has to be done electronically, which means anything can be checked, anything can be looked at, or anytime you try to make any money, has to be electronically done. Well, where did you get that money from? Someone may ask. Or how about you want to make a donation? Donation can't be made in cash. Let's say you want to sell something. You go to a flea market. You want to sell a whole bunch of stuff you have. Well, the flea market is, well, you'll only be able to use a cash. Someone can use a card to buy your stuff you're selling at the flea market, which means you've got to have a device to accept that card. Everybody will. That's a cashless society. You want to go to church, right? Make your donation to the church when you're sitting there at the service and they come around with a basket. Won't be coming around with a basket. Coming around with an electronic machine, you plug your card in. Put on there how much you want to donate. That way the church knows exactly who donated and how much you donated. It's not anonymous anymore. That's what you get in a cashless society. Anything you do, anything you want to do at all, it can be traced. And if someone doesn't like what he did, they're going to say, "Hey, tell us where that money came from." You want to try to go out and sell something, got a product in your house. Maybe you got a wheelbarrow you want to sell your neighbor. $20? Can't give you $20. He's got to do it by plugging into your cash machine, your little box you carry around. Well, the government can say, "Hey, you sold something." Why, that goes onto your taxes. So anything you want to sell on a garage sale, imagine having a garage sale. Your garage sale, everybody has to hand them their card into your machine so they can record what you sold. Then the government gets a hold of that information and says, "Well, you owe taxes and all that stuff you sold." That's what we're looking at, folks. You may not like this, but for the talk of going to a cashless society, you better think about it. Because I realized what it was like without a credit card or being without my ATM and not being able to buy anything until I get a new one. Nothing. I couldn't buy anything. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't eat. I couldn't buy food. I couldn't get a car wash. I couldn't do a thing because I had to have that card. And that's what life is like in a cashless society. And without that card, you are nothing. And you can be made nothing real quick. If someone sees your account and doesn't like what you're doing, they could say, we're canceling your account out. And essentially, they're canceling you out. So, cashless society? Well, maybe Dave Ramsey was right. Cashless society is not necessarily a good idea. As a matter of fact, it may be a very, very bad idea. Something for you to think about. And now, you know. Well, if you're a resident of the state of Indiana, you might want to listen up for a second because this could change your driving habits. What is it? Well, your legislature down in Indianapolis decided to give the governor okay to contact the feds, as in the federal government, to say, hey, we want to do something with the interstate. Now, you say the interstate? What's wrong with the interstate? Well, down in Indianapolis, there's a particular interstate called I-70. Now, I-70 runs from the east to the west. I-70 started out in Baltimore and goes all the way to Grand Junction. Why it stops there is beyond me, but it does. It's all part of the interstate system that was created back during the Eisenhower administration when you want to have roads connecting America so the military could use them if something happened, well, to the government involving the military. Well, now we have a complete system of interstate roads crisscrossing the United States, and one of the biggest is I-70. Now, I-70 stretches from the middle of the country. So you've got I-10 to the south, you've got 80-90 up to the north, but right there in the middle, going from, like I said, Baltimore to Grand Junction is I-70. Turns out that people driving on I-70, when they enter Indiana, they drive 156 miles. That's how long the stretch is from the east side of Indiana to the west side, and they don't stop. They just go 156 miles right through the state of Indiana. And the governor of Indiana says, you know what? Those people are driving on our roads and they're not contributing anything. They're not buying gas. They're just going right through Indiana and they're not giving us a dime, but they're using our roads. And that road, I-70, is becoming very, very congested because, well, it's a major travel road, straight road, Baltimore to Colorado. If that's the way you want to go. So what he did was he got the legislature to give him a deal. Hey, all right, Gov, you could go to the feds, Federal Highway Department, and say, we want to turn I-70 into a toll road. You heard me right. Now, we do have toll roads in Indiana, right? 80-90, the top part of the state. Got to pay tolls there driving across Indiana. Of course, you got to pay tolls pretty much everywhere on that road. But he wants to create a toll road just in the state of Indiana, from the east side to the west side. And he wants to charge people 10 cents a mile, so that's about $15 and change for a car. But for a truck, $84.24 on a toll road. Now, they want to get this thing started in 2029. But you're going, wait a minute, they're just doing it to make money? Well, no. The reason they want to do that is to collect the toll money to earn $6.5 billion. You're going, what are you going to do with $6.5 billion? They're going to enlarge 70 from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. Because right now you got 2 on one side, 2 on the other. That's pretty much the way the interstate system was set up. But now in congested areas, they've had to expand it out. Now there's parts of I-70 they have widened out a little bit, a little here, a little there, but the whole 156 miles, they want to turn that into 6 lanes, 3 this way, 3 that way. And frankly, that's what's happening because so much more traffic is going on than was envisioned back when they created the interstate, or at least the one in I-70 in the 1960s. They need $6.5 billion to do it. And the only way they're going to do it is putting tolls on there, especially those people driving across the state of Indiana. Now, here's the question you're going to ask. How are they going to collect those things? Well, according to the information coming out from the state, they're going to use cameras to do it. I guess when you drive through the little booth, the camera is going to take a picture of your license plate, whether it's on the front or the back or wherever it happens to be. And then somehow, and I haven't figured out the somehow yet, they're going to send that person who has that car registered to them a bill. Here's a bill. You drove across Indiana, you got to pay the toll. And I'm thinking to myself, how are they going to collect that? How are they going to collect that from another state if someone's driving from, say, Delaware, they're driving through Indiana? How are you going to go to Delaware and get the $15? I don't know that. Maybe there's a trick I don't know about. And then here's the other thing. You know, the 70s got a lot of off-ramps, especially down in the Indianapolis area. What, are they going to have booths at each off-ramp taking pictures of the car? Well, there's where you left. Seems to me like it's going to be a computer nightmare, trying to keep track of all that traffic and then sending out electronic bills to everybody. I mean, what's the postage going to be sending out the bills to everybody? That's the question I have. It may sound like a good idea, and I understand wanting to turn it in from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. I get that. But how are they going to make this work? How are they going to collect it? And frankly, is it going to be a toll road forever once they get the lanes built and taken care of and paid for? What are they going to do with all that money after they get the $6.5 billion? Keep charging people? Just a guess on my part. But that's what's going on, folks. Down in Indianapolis, turning I-70 from a regular interstate into a toll road for $15 and change for a car and $81.24 for a truck. And by the way, with trucks, do you think they're going to try to figure getting another route to get off of the toll road so they can not have to pay it in Indiana? And don't trucks try to do that up north, getting off of 80, 90, and try a different route to the top of Indiana to avoid the toll roads? It's just a guess on my part, but I'm thinking something is going on, at least something the truckers are doing that maybe you didn't want to know about. So now you know everything going on, and that's the name of the game, folks, because now you do know. Well, today I come at you with some unfortunate news, and it's going to make a lot of people unhappy, both in Fort Wayne and frankly around the world, because an event that's been going on here in the city of Fort Wayne for a number of years is not going to happen in 2026. And frankly, it may not happen ever again. What event am I talking about? The annual Vera Bradley outlet sale. You heard me right. The annual Vera Bradley outlet sale has been canceled this year and may not be happening down the road either. It's just the companies had to reorganize. Now, let me get a little behind that so you understand what's going on. The ladies who started Vera Bradley clear back in the 1970s, they met doing a wallpapering, and they got together and started doing wallpaper and then started selling clothing. And it was Barbara Beckard and Pat Miller, just 2 ladies. And they ended up borrowing $500 from their husband and started this company. And Vera Bradley is named after the mother of Barbara Beckard. So they started the company, incorporated it in 1982 after they saw in an airport. They were coming back from a trunk show someplace in Florida, and they saw people with the bags they had. Now, keep in mind, this is back in the late 1970s, early 1980s. The bags people were carrying the stuff in at the airport. And frankly, they looked kind of bland, didn't look very cool, didn't look very, well, dazzling or anything like that. So they decided, hey, why don't we try to make some bags that look cooler? And they got some fabric and started to make bags. And ultimately, well, some of those bags ended up at a sorority girl. Now, anytime you give a sorority girl something cool that looks really neat and makes her look different than everybody else, every other sorority girl is going to want the same thing. It's just, that's sororities are. I know, because I had a sorority daughter. There they start these bags. And they started sewing these bags. They started working in their basement of their home, packaging things up. This is the way small business starts. In a small location, marketing some of the stuff out. And, well, when the stuff becomes popular, more people want it. And as more people wanted it, they had to expand. And they got sewing companies out there, companies that had the sewing machines. And people could do this, sewing the bags, the Vera Bradley bags. And that became a concept, and it became a very big concept because of all the patterns they had, all the styles and the glitz and the glamour and everything it was. And Suddenly, national media picked it up, and Vera Bradley became a very, very popular brand. And it has been for a number of years. Well, Vera Bradley eventually got so big, they couldn't use local companies or companies in the Fort Wayne area, even companies in the United States to sew their stuff. And they ended up, like many companies, they went to China to get their products produced. And obviously, some of the people who were buying their stuff didn't like it when they see a Made in China label on Vera Bradley stuff. And they tried to fix the problem, but there just weren't companies that could do it. So they ended up going to Cambodia and Myanmar and Vietnam and a lot of other places to try to get their stuff made, because there just weren't companies in the United States that was doing this anymore. But every year, Vera Bradley had their big outlet sale in Fort Wayne. Usually happened in the latter part of April into May, and people would come from not just the United States. They would come from countries around the world. Fort Wayne Airport used to have a whole bunch of people coming in. They would come in Minneapolis, they'd come into Fort Wayne. They came from everywhere. People would line up, get tickets. They'd be lining up outside to get in. It was one of the biggest events in the city of Fort Wayne, was the Vera Bradley sale. People came in and they bought tons of stuff, and I know because I got a wife and daughters. They would go to Vera Bradley sale. That was the big thing. Now, there were people that came in and bought Vera Bradley stuff off the floor and resold it. Let's be honest, that's what happens. And Vera Bradley got into legal tussle with some people trying to make counterfeit stuff that looked like their stuff. So they went through the trials and tribulations of being a company trying to sell a product. Well, ultimately, people's tastes started to change, as what happens. And keep in mind, this company was incorporated in 1982. Now, here we are in 2026. So you got to figure that's over 40-some years they've been around. Tastes change. They always do. Everything moves on. Now, well, it used to be in the old days, you'd go and see the luggage on an airport line on the conveyor that would come around the airport. You'd see all these Vera Bradley bags. They're big fluffy bags. That's what people had. They carried around the big Vera Bradley bag. Everything was Vera Bradley. And their factory over there on 69 near the GM plant had a lot of folks working. And everybody had Vera Bradley stuff. But eventually people got tired of the big giant bags. They wanted something that was more concise, easy to put up, because it got to be so difficult you couldn't put a Vera Bradley bag in the overhead of the airplane. Because the bags had gotten so big, people couldn't stuff them in there. It was a problem. Well, more and more people were going to these compact aluminum suitcases type of things. And the biggest thing was the aluminum suitcases with the wheels. Now, Vera Bradley did have big bags with wheels. Well, they did do it. But the bags were still too big. And stuffing those things in an overhead bin in an airplane, couldn't do it. Things started to change and people's tastes started to change. As the taste started to change, the sales of Vera Bradley products started to go down. Last year, they lost something like $270 million. Now, when you're losing money, you got to bring in some people trying to rerun the rodeo and try to get things back on track. And they've appointed a new CEO and new folks to come in and run the company and try to get them out of a hole they're in. So they're trying. But because of that, they are not going to have an outlet sale in 2026. And down the road, I can't tell you if they're going to have any more. It's a big change for the city of Fort Wayne, but it's a big change for the luggage industry, because more and more people are saying, you know what? We want to go to one of those compact aluminum things, the ones that are square and easy to stick in the overhead bins of the airplane's luggage compartments. That's what it's gone to, because tastes change. The old saying, everything old is new again, well, that may happen down the road. But right now, Vera Bradley started in 1982 when it was incorporated. They've had a pretty good run. And the two ladies who ran it, well, they did pretty well for themselves, starting off $500 and created a bag that women loved. But like anything else, it changes. Everybody changes. And in this case, it has changed, and hopefully Vera Bradley will come back. Hopefully Vera Bradley will reinvent themselves into something even bigger and better. But right now, they lost money last year, and this year there's going to be no Vera Bradley sale. So sad, but true. But maybe, just maybe, good things will happen down the road for Vera Bradley. And now you know.